A lot of this is built on growing optimism. The president's first 100 days could have a capper of at least an aggressive tax cut plan, the likes of which we have not seen since Ronald Reagan. But I go to hear many in the media tell it. The president's had a horrific 100 days and without a legislative accomplishment to speak of. But again, be careful with this 100 days thing. Do you know who had the worst first 100 days as president? Well, Abraham Lincoln did. And I was there. I covered it. I remember. And one of the best 100 days, at least the first 100 days, was Jimmy Carter. So I'm just saying here, just make careful, sweeping conclusions about those first 100 days. And I learned that from one of the best, presidential historian extraordinaire, best-selling author Doug Wead, who says President Trump still has plenty of time to get to those accomplishments. He is the author of Game of Thorns, much more. So, Doug, your point is, while the president might have telegraphed a great deal of optimism about his first 100 days himself, don't hold him to that 100-day thing exclusively, that there's more time here, right?
Absolutely. In fact, I think it's been magnificent. It's eerily reminiscent of Ronald Reagan. You'll remember, just because Ronald Reagan got elected at his inauguration, the Iranians released the hostages because they feared what was coming. And just because Donald Trump has been elected, he's turned around the American economy. You can make that argument. There are American companies that are staying here. There are companies that are coming back here, have announced that. There are Americans being hired without any legislation being passed because the stock market has boomed because they know what's coming.
But, you know, Doug, you just hit a key point here that you know better than anyone, that we use the same metrics to judge success, as if legislation introduced or you know, how much of that kind of stuff you've racked up to define your worth. Just like a do-nothing Congress is considered illustrative of one incapable of coming up with new laws or new regulations, as if that decides the success of a Congress or a president. You do talk about his executive orders here, the direction and the signal he's sending the markets, but these metrics are important in some respect, aren't they?
Well, they are, but here's a metric. Immigration, illegal immigration, is substantially down. These gangs from Honduras that were protected by local governments that required murder as the initiation to come into their gang are being rounded up. They were preying not only on all Americans, but also other immigrants, including illegal immigrants, were at their mercy. All of that has changed without the wall being built. Once again, it's words. Ronald Reagan spoke and the Berlin Wall came down. And in this case, Donald Trump speaks, and he doesn't have to build the wall, it appears. He is the wall, and it's changing America. I think the legislation will come, but so far he's out of the gate pretty quick. He's turned around the economy, turned around the Supreme Court, turned around this whole issue of illegal immigration.
Still, he is shelving for the time being, we're told, Doug, this idea of a wall and having Congress authorize funds for it, that it might happen later. He is running into a little bit of a buzzsaw when it comes to big tax cuts that might not be paid for right away. Some conservatives in his own party are saying, no, these have to be revenue neutral. So he could run into, as he did with his first health care rework attempt, opposition, not from Democrats so much as those within his own party. Can he withstand yet another defeat in that area?
I think he can. You know, in writing Game of Thorns, we spent a lot of time following his career, and it's very interesting when he would start a project in Manhattan and he'd get resistance from the city, from neighborhoods, from government organizations, and those who gave out the permits. Right. He would just walk away from it, go build something else, but he'd keep coming back to those old neighborhoods until he finally cobbled together the alliance he needed to do it. And I think the same thing will apply to these political battles here in Washington. He doesn't give up. He keeps coming back.
No, you're right about that. Now, you and I differ a little bit, and I understand what you're saying about executive orders and the rest. I think he's had a bumpy 100 days. Maybe it started with the whole crowd thing at his inauguration and getting sidetracked. But I do agree with you that there are other ways to measure that success. Now, what I am asking you, though, is he's going to need these tax cuts and/or health care plan reworks to go through, right? He can't afford that not to happen, right?
He's going to have this legislation to make his term successful, and I think he can. I look at John F. Kennedy's first 100 days. It was a disaster.
Absolutely.
There was not only Bay of Pigs, there was Vienna, where Nikita Khrushchev took his measure and almost brought us to nuclear war. So I think Trump is learning quickly, and we can't measure it too quickly. We got to wait and see what happens.
All right. Thank you very much, Doug Wead, the presidential historian extraordinaire.